Okay, welcome to the new session for PSIR, Political Science Optional, and today's topic for quick learning and so many questions that may be based on that will be the concept of power. Power in political science is a central theme, and other than the concept of state, which is the fulcrum of this optional, power is another very important and you can say very pervasive theme in political science, this optional everywhere. And no doubt therefore that if we study this concept of power theoretically and maybe practically in whatever is given in a syllabus, we successfully make ourselves capable in solving many more questions from the other topics and sections of our optional and GS as well. But definitely the power as a topic in itself has many questions, because these days questions are only 150 word or 250 words. So many smaller questions may be asked from this concept of power. Right. So what should be the basic criteria to understand or apprise ourselves very generally, so that we can actually answer the questions theoretically in this optional, and without going into the debate whether we accept the supremacy or universality of power or not, because if you don't accept the power's universality, then maybe we need some course correction in the way you perceive the world, because almost everyone today accepts that power is everywhere, or actually everything is only about power, nothing else. And some extreme power believers, like you can say the realist thinkers of IR, they may end up saying, which you or I may not agree, but they may end up saying that everything is power, nothing without power, nothing beyond power. In fact, every human relationship is nothing more than the power relationship. Sociologically this may be true, anthropologically this may be true, but again there can be a whole lot of debate in this extreme version of power. But one thing is very clear, that centrality of power in social life, political life, human life can never be denied. So universality of power as a concept and its role, various roles, I'll say positive role, of course we can also say negative role, but role of power is so many every day, every second in our life, that it has to be the central part of our any political thinking. Okay, so instead of going into what is the definition of power, that we will take a bit later, we may start with thinking about where power is located, because if power is so pervasive, and as Talcott Parson, a famous sociologist, said that power in society is like money in economy. Like without money, without currency, economy cannot even think of existing, surviving. Therefore, society / politics cannot even think of existing without the concept of power. So power is everywhere. Without power, there cannot be any politics. Talcott Parson, that's what the definition he gave. So where is the power located? And if we can have an analytical view or some theoretical understanding and the ramification of the location of power, if we can find out few of them, then we can definitely be more prepared to write few very good answers in this examination. For example, I'll take, if I say power is located in the individual, me, you, or every individual, and with this power in me or you, means individual, we decide to whom to transfer the power willingly or maybe unwillingly, but only with the transfer of individual power into someone, the greater power may be created. One example can be given is either contract. So through contract, means social contract, the individual power to rule over themselves is transferred to the state. And so only the individual power politicized, collectivized in very conditioned manner, contractual manner becomes a state, and therefore it is called political power. And this view that power is essentially located in individual, the locus of power is the human capacities, individual, dignity, human body, one psychophysical organism, this will lead to a liberal view of power. And all those theories of liberalism, be it pluralist theory or be it negative liberal or positive liberal or egalitarian liberals, all of them will somehow subscribe to this view that the basic locus of power is only in the individual. And so every theorization about the society or state or liberty or anything else should start only with centrality of the individual. So core is only about individual, and periphery, which is politics or whatever, is only about integration of the individual tendency, and this will be called a liberal view of power. So power is within us. Power is within us. There may be another related view like Mahatma Gandhi, which we can say idealist view of power. Like Gandhi will say that power remains in individual, definitely like liberals, but Gandhi will reject the notion that individual can transfer his or her power to anybody else. And therefore Gandhi will say Swaraj means self-rule is the only way out. But then it becomes an ideal concept, utopian concept, because self-rule in moral sphere is okay, but in a political sphere with huge population of the modern days becomes impossible. And in any way, even if we establish Gandhian Panchayati Raj, we have to transfer power from individual to some elected representatives. Even the direct participation through general will of Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who is the supporter only of the direct democracy, that again the problem is about the transfer of power, but impracticality of transfer directly to someone, because only we can use our power indirectly through elected representatives such as MPs and MLAs. Today. So the location of power, if we understand properly, we can actually understand entire and to the large extent almost entire Gandhian theory, or for that matter liberal theory. And the third example or third theory which we can go for the location of power is class location, means power is located in the class, in the society. So the Marxism, Karl Marx of course, believed in centrality of class theory of power. It means that when society is divided into classes, for Marxism only two classes, then power is located in capitalism only in the dominant class, the rich capitalist class. And they exercise this power for Karl Marx through instrument of exploitation of the state. And if we take Gramsci into calculation, then this power of the class will be used by them through hegemony and manipulation of the civil society. But at the end of the day, not both, actually all the variants of Marxism will believe, or they propound, that power is located only in the class. And power, since located only in the class, the one class will always be in dominant position, and so they will exploit the other class. Will they share power with the exploited class? No. Share of power is impossible, because with power comes lots of benefits, lots of capabilities, lots of profits. And so nobody who is powerful will ever like to share the power willingly or voluntarily. And this view is against the what we have the Gandhian view or idealist view. Because Gandhi or his disciples like Vinoba Bhave, they thought that power may be voluntarily, willingly decentralized, transferred to some extent or to large extent. And there are some practical examples like Bhudan movement in India after Gandhi by Vinoba Bhave, where willingly the power was transferred from the dominant class to not so dominant class. But anyway, these are largely utopian and they are still considered impractical dimension of transfer of power. So Marxism, which is a theory of believing, theory of believers in the class power, believes that the power will always be exploitative in nature, and so they will exploit the poor people, the working class for Marx. There is no poor, actually working class. And so the working class will realize someday that the actual reason of their exploitation or their condition is the rich class and their hold on means of production, which is the source of power, and therefore they will get the awareness which Marx calls consciousness, class consciousness, and then they will end up doing some kind of revolution and establish a communist classless society. So the location of power. So that's what I said in the beginning of our session, that if we properly understand that where the power is located and what are the theories or the ramifications or the thinkers talking about the that kind of location of that power, we can actually understand the significant portion of that thinker or theory. Another example which I can give here for, because that is again the part of syllabus and our broader understanding, and which will have a huge impact or our entire UPSC examination system will be, those people who believe that power is located in patriarchy. And you can easily guess who will say this. So the feminist, all the feminist thinkers, be it liberal feminist or Marxist feminist or radical feminist or the contemporary feminist, postmodern feminist, all of them will say that power is located in patriarchy, means the pattern of male domination in the society. What is patriarchy? Pattern of decision making which is centralized in the hands of the males, and that's how the power is located, not only in male but the pattern in which the male domination is established, and because of it is like a class similar to Marx but not on economic basis or economic criteria, but here it is more gendered criteria, sexual criteria, and therefore power is located here, and the result will be the same. Like Marx said that nobody will share the power with the exploited class. Feminism also believes, specifically radical feminism, that the patriarchy, the pattern of patriarchy, the dominant notion of patriarchy will never voluntarily share the power with the females, with the women. And so they end up demanding that state should be interfering into this patriarchal structure, and the biggest structure and symbol of patriarchy is only family, and until women are not emancipated or get some escape from the family structure and the family life, radical feminism believes that this exploitation of patriarchal power can never be retrieved, can never be solved. However, other schools of feminism are not so radical in nature, because liberal feminism believes that if we provide education, opportunity, avenues, health, food, and real equality of opportunity in every sense, then there is no reason why patriarchy cannot be controlled, regulated, or molded. So there may be a difference of views, but the location of power in the pattern of male domination, that is patriarchy, is the central theme of all the theories and thinkers of feminism. So they believe in this, they believe in this. And similarly, we can have a liberal elite theory of power. And liberal elite theory of power, they believe that power is located only among few talented people in society, because a liberal elite theory believes that in society not everyone is equally talented. Few people are born talented, they have more organizational capacity, they have more leadership skills, they have more risk-taking behavior, and therefore they end up taking initiatives, leading the society in either good or bad way everywhere. So it is the only elite who wield the power in society, and the masses, which are generally follower, passive, indolent, lazy, they are born only to follow the leaders, and therefore power will always be in hands of few talented people who are born to rule the society. Elite class does not say that only economics will be the elite class, yeah, only the caste will be elite class, or only the sex will be elite class. No. They simply say only one thing: only few people will be a ruling class, means the elite class. And they can be anyone. They can be anyone. For example, any one of us who joins civil services, they simply become from masses to elite. One very good example of how the new elites are created. So elite thinking is, or location of power for them is very simply in the top few percent of the people who are more educated, more talented, more risk-taking, and this elite theory is further proved by data and factual analysis in 60s and 70s in US and other developed countries, be it communist or non-communist or democratic. So it is James Burnham, he wrote a book, Managerial Revolution, and James Burnham said that due to rise in technology, due to rise in the importance and differentiation and efficiency of bureaucracy, the modern states are being ruled by managers. And this managerial technocratic class, bureaucratic class, is the elite which is ruling. It doesn't matter you are voting anybody as the prime minister or the president, or it is ruled by any dictator. At the end of the day, actual power is only in the hands of the new managerial class, who because of his own expertise and technical knowledge is having the full control on the power channels and points and nodes in the society. So the location of power once again here tells or supports the elite theory of power, Managerial Revolution theory of the James Burnham. And if we go into much more radical or much more postmodern view of power, then we can still solve few questions for our optional. That is, like if somebody can say power remains in individual, but then individual's power will be meaningful only when the individuals act in a collective manner. Now we are making a compromise between, or a midway point between, individual and the community. Means power is only in the individual, but that power will be called a power, meaningful power, real power, a peaceful power, only when all the individuals act collectively. The benefit of this power is because one individual cannot act alone using his power against the society, because if you do so, you may need to create violence, because you have to force the others to accept your view because you are behaving alone. And similarly, if the state is behaving against the collection of people, community, then definitely state is doing violence because people are not agreeing with the state. So this view of power is very interestingly, if you can recall, some of you, which thinker I am talking about, is called Hannah Arendt, concept of power. So Hannah Arendt very clearly, she gave this theory that power means 3-4 things. Number one, non-violent individual action, public participation, public realm, collective action. And if all these factors are not in any action, be it by the individual or by the state, it will be called violence. So Hannah Arendt is here saying the location of power is in individual plus community together. It is not in the state, it is not only in the community, it is not only in the individual. And that is one very constructive view of power. Why we say Hannah Arendt's view as the constructive view of power? Because Hannah Arendt created checks and balances on the misuse of power. Because Hannah Arendt saw the misuse of state power by the Stalin and Hitler. Both became totalitarian states and both regimes killed millions of people. And they perpetrated violence, and so the deeds of the totalitarian state under Nazi Hitler or Soviet Stalin cannot be said to be power, because power has to be meaningful, peaceful, participatory and collective, and for developmental creative purposes. So there is a very thin red line between power and violence for Hannah Arendt, and that's why she is famous. And how can we derive her entire theory? Simply by trying to find out what she says where power is located in society. Right? But yet very fundamental and very interesting location of power theory is given by Michel Foucault, another very important thinker in our syllabus. And who is asked multiple times to see how many questions we are solving, because all these things which we discussed one by one, they can themselves be one question each in the examination. And if we are conceptually clear into what we are writing and what the examiner is asking, there is no doubt that we will get good marks at the end. So let's go to Michel Foucault. And Foucault, being the postmodern thinker, he said simply, power is not located into class, no, not in individual, no, not in patriarchy, no. So Foucault rejected every pre-existing view on power, and he said very clearly, power is like a blood flowing in the body. Blood flowing in the veins, blood flowing in the capillary of the human body. Means power in the society exists in every institutions and norms and rules and offices and boss and superior, supervisor, junior, senior. Means everywhere where somebody is supposed to be boss and somebody is supposed to be junior or follower of that person, the power exists there. And since such relation is everywhere, because a patient follows what doctor says, a judge says, and all the advocates and the offenders and the prisoners and the jailers will have to comply. Bureaucrat will say, secretary will say, the boss will say, and all will comply. Teacher will say, students will comply. UPSC will say, you will and I will also comply. So for Michel Foucault, power is not located in a static manner into any particular dimension of society, but power is actually flowing like a water, flowing like a blood, flowing but in every relation where there is governmentality, and he uses the word government, but he doesn't mean government, he says governmentality, means wherever there is the possibility of the rule by someone over someone, the power exists there. And therefore he said very clearly, it is not knowledge that creates power, but instead, more than this, it is knowledge, it is power that creates knowledge. Because once you are powerful, you create a setup of ideas, For example, as the technology changes, medical science changes, a new set of standards of sexuality changes. Never in the history, Michel Foucault says that being gay and lesbian was crime in history. But only with the advent of modernism, which is the 15th century and after, the gays and lesbians were punished. And in early modern period, even with the death sentence, even thinkers who believe, thinkers like Immanuel Kant, who is supposed to be idealist liberal thinker, he also recommended severest penalty punishment for the gays and lesbians in the society, because he thought it is abnormal, inhuman. So that's what it said. But right now, the same medical science has proved, knowledge has proved that it is okay to be having in the same sex sexuality. And now the knowledge has created power for that. And power has created knowledge for that. So the knowledge power is just a two-way relation, and more so that power justified itself by creating a suitable amount of knowledge, and that's how power survives and expands in society. So it is wrong, as Foucault says, to say that power is class, or power is male female, or power is elitistic or something like that. So we need to understand that location of power is the most important question, and if we clearly solve this dilemma, I'm not here to burden you with more complicated arguments, but point here is to start our understanding with simply thinking on power and finding and discussing our mind with where power is located, option A, option B, option C, option D, and what will be the consequent implications, which thinker or theory will be applied here, and you will see that so many questions, probable questions and comments you will be ready with for the examination. So if power is so vital, so what could be the possible definitions of power? That is very easy to say that. Easiest definition of power is given by the Max Weber, and he said very simply, every politics is a struggle for power. Means one thing is clear, if it is politics, it is only for power, nothing else. So if you think that politics is for national development or for national security, these are all after power. So if there is a politician, his first job is to acquire power, and to acquire power he has to serve people, or it may be otherwise. After acquiring power, to retain power he has to serve the people, because that's what the job is. So Max Weber said that every politics is struggle for power. Lasswell and Kaplan, they are of course thinkers of behavioral revolution days, and they said clearly that focus of every politics is nothing but acquisition, maintenance and loss of power. Once again, power and politics are one and same. So very easy to understand what is power, and easiness means simply commonsensically, on sometimes nonchalantly we can say that politics is power and power is politics, which may not be true always, but largely it is true in our daily practical life. So we should conclude our definition of power with what Stephen Lukes had said, that power is essentially a contested concept, and he said that power can be defined in three different manners, and and all these three dimensions of power is correct in itself. So first is what he said, Robert Dahl angle or axis of definition of power. So Robert Dahl and Lasswell and Kaplan angle of power is, power means power of A over B, where A wants B to do something against the wishes of B. That is called power. Means power over someone is power. And in this sense, power is always relational. Means wherever there is any kind of relation on this earth between two people, there will be always power between them. There can be no relation on this earth without power. So power is always relational. It requires two persons. Therefore, only that there will be two persons, I can be less powerful or more powerful. But if I am the only person on the earth, I can never call myself more powerful. So to be more powerful, somebody has to be there less powerful. And therefore, power is always relational. And which is very practical and logically very sound definition of power. And second definition Stephen Luke said of power can be given by the Martin Barrage angle. There was thinker Martin Barrage, and he said that power is the power of agenda setting in any organization. Means what will be the topic of negotiation? What will be the topic of media debate? What will be the topic of focus of people? If anybody can set the agenda of negotiation, and this is called the agenda setting power, and definitely we can understand this is a very big amount of power, huge process of power, because there you decide what people will think. You are not controlling their thinking. You are only deciding what will come in TV. So that's how the agenda setting is done. For example, some superstar's son arrested in some drugs case, and the entire media there. So agenda is set. Now the entire country will do that. IPL T20 match is coming. A majority of people will focus on that. So that is agenda setting. Very few people are interested in COP26 Glasgow, even if it was the live telecast going for that, because agenda is not set there, basically. So you can see that agenda setting is a very, very important power, the second dimension of what contested power Stephen Luke says. And the third is definitely ideational power, means power to control the thought process of the others. And this is best reflected by many thinkers, but hegemony as the concept given by neo-Marxist thinker and of course Gramsci, and neo-left thinkers such as Habermas and Marcuse, and other postmodern neo-left thinkers such as we can say Noam Chomsky or Naomi Klein. So these guys have said in one vein, one strand, that some people are more talented, more intelligent, or more advanced for whatever reason, that is not important here, and they can actually enter into the mind of others, and they can create for themselves a very favorable image, their own attraction, even if that image is a false image. They may not be truly that attractive or the beneficial, but they have the capacity of, by hook or by crook, to change the perception of the other person, So this is the thought process. Thought controlling power is called ideational hegemonic power. And this is again a very, very important power. So maybe people are ready to be controlled, or maybe I am so smart that I am controlling your thought. That can be a huge matter of debate, because if we go into the liberal thinking, so Almond and Werber They wrote a book, Civic Culture, I think in 1969. Yes, 1969. And so they came up with the idea that it is about the political culture that people willingly accept the prevailing system, prevailing state, prevailing law, prevailing morality, prevailing prime minister, prevailing constitution, and not because some unnecessary theorization about the control of their thoughts like Gramsci had done. No. So they said people are so busy with their life, so they may not be always worried about what is happening outside their life. So they have acceptance, more belief into their system, constitution, and the state symbols, national symbols, and they may participate in greater number to show that, like higher voting percentage, or they may not participate into that. Even then it shows that they believe into that, that is the lower voting percentage. And even the lower voting percentage in countries like US does not mean that people have no interest in the politics or the system. It simply means, according to Almond and Verba, it is called sleeping dog theory, means that people are satisfied like a sleeping dog and it doesn't matter to them who rules. Because in a liberal democratic system, welfare state is so fixed and established that it doesn't matter who rules. Because it is almost certain in Western democracies specifically that the basic ideology, the basic functions of the government has been fixed. So therefore, it is not always about hegemony as Gramsci propounded, that civil society is manipulated by the state and thereby people who are exploited like working class end up supporting capitalist system, is not always correct. Not always correct. People may have their own versions why they believe in the system, So this ideational power is not always the only version to explain why people, according to Marx, who are so-called exploited class, still support the capitalist system, and thereby there is no revolution in the world, because according to Karl Marx, people will automatically do revolution because they will realize one day that they are being exploited. But we have seen enough that this is nonsense. Nothing like this happens or happened in the history, or maybe will never happen. So friends, the concept of power here is very interesting, and as I said, the central theory. And before we end up this session, let me few minutes spend on the relation between the power and authority. As Rousseau said, Kautilya said that might must be converted into right, otherwise only a naked force cannot be ruled for a longer period. Therefore, the power to rule must be converted into authority to rule. And this comes with the simple mathematical equation to shorten the whole thing. I can say power plus legitimacy is equal to authority. Means if I remove legitimacy from the concept of power, authority is gone and naked power remains. And so if you want to rule society for a longer period peacefully, you must to have create legitimacy for your power. And this legitimacy comes from a variety of regions, and that can be, for example, Herbert Marcuse will say that the technocratic society, efficient society, consumerist society has no time for any other human value. And so in the name of production, efficiency, technology, consumerism, what has happened that the individuals, the people of the world has become one-dimensional. And thus they have actually lost any kind of interest in thinking of any other human dimension other than being consumerist. So legitimacy is definitely created because of this clever, what he says, that mass media advertising packages, production. So this could be one of the explanations to create legitimacy. On the other hand, political culture of almond and verba, I said, has its own explanation. And if you say that egalitarianism, that modernist liberal democratic states provide social justice, they provide basic minimum needs, so they have the created legitimacy for themselves. And at the last, in theory of legitimacy, of course we are shortening it beyond we should have done, but I should add into this at least, so that we should know where it is going to end, and that is called, what is Jürgen Habermas called, legitimation crisis. And what is legitimation crisis according to Jürgen Habermas, a new left thinker? He said that liberal democratic systems like US, UK, they have promised so much of the welfare to the people that they are running their government in fiscal deficit, and they can raise money only by taxing the rich people, which they cannot, because rich people will resent. So there is inherent contradiction in this liberal welfare democracy, where they have promised welfare and they cannot tax the capitalists to finance that expenditure. And this contradiction gradually is transforming itself into various kinds of crises, and one of that is legitimation and motivation crisis. But on the opposite side, on the counter side, we have Robert Dahl axis, which explains this whole thing into that it is a government overload crisis. It is no more kind of legitimation crisis, because the modern societies are so complicated that no government can ever develop an efficient machinery who can deliver the policies of the government 100% accurately to the people. So many dynamism and crisscrossing of the interest of the pressure groups and the groups in the society is there, that somebody will always feel that they have not got what they wanted. So it is the governmental overload which is creating a perception of crisis. There is not actually liberal democratic legitimacy crisis. So legitimation is inherent part of liberal democracy, and hence liberal democracy, whatever the political power it creates, always remains legal authority, de facto and de jure authority to rule the country, the state. So with this very brief analysis of what is the concept of power, of course it requires much more treatment and going into bigger classes, but then I wanted you to understand how to go into the concept of power and solve multiple questions. Thank you for joining the session. We will soon meet for some other topic. Thank you.